This is my 1969 Jeep Gladiator four-wheel drive pickup that hasn't been on the road in over 20 years. We're going to change that right now. It's the J3000 model, which roughly translates as a half-ton with 126-inch wheelbase. Has the town side bed and a razor grille that officially came out on the 1970 model year. This one was manufactured in October '69, so it's right in that changeover period. AMC bought Kaiser Jeep in February of 1970, so this is one of the last Kaiser Jeep pickups ever made. Someone has also fitted a tiny aftermarket steering wheel, presumably from a pedal car. These are often favoured by the larger gentlemen of the beer drinking persuasion. This has the Turbo 400 3-speed automatic transmission with an aftermarket shifter that definitely adds, minus 10 horsepower? It has the sought-after Dauntless Buick 350 V8 with a 9:1 compression ratio that achieved 230 horsepower at 4,400 RPM and 350 foot-pounds of torque at only 2,400 RPM. And that's with the stock 2-barrel carb. This one has the 4-barrel factory manifold that was only available in the cars and an Edelbrock 1405 4-barrel carburetor. A little while ago, I mounted this AC-powered winch underneath my teardown table. Now, that probably seems a little bit weird until you realise my teardown table is in line with my 2-post lift. So when I want to drag a car in from outside, and I have Lexi, over there doing a bit of laser cleaning and I'm doing it by myself, I can just use this and winch a non-running truck straight into my bay with only one person, which for me is a huge time saver. And here it is, safe and sound in my shop, and only needed one person. If I want to move it around so it's a little bit more centre between the 2 posts of my lift, which is something I'm super paranoid about, I've got some dollies that I can do that with. It has got a tailgate, and the tailgates are pretty rare, but this one has got some bolts stripped down on it on this left-hand side, and I want to be able to get in there and helicoil them, so I've left quite a bit of space behind it so I can work. Back when we had the restoration company, we were buying a lot of old cars. Weekly at one point, and we were dragging them out of fields, and they'd been there for 30, 40 years, grass growing through the bottom of them. They were horrific. Lots of animals. There's black widows here, and we've had a few things with scorpions in and that kind of stuff. So I like to put a bug bomb in them whenever we bring them into a shop, because I don't want whatever's living in that suddenly all over my shop, just a nightmare. They say that you shouldn't use these in small rooms, but I've checked, and that's not a room, so we're golden. And I've just got to wind up the window, because you definitely don't want to be breathing this stuff in. I won't go back in that now until the morning. Hopefully you can see that in there doing its thing. The windows are a bit dirty, to be honest. But anything that's in there is going to be dead by the morning. There are a few things that you need to know about this truck. I bought this back in 2023 from a guy that lived out near Missoula, and he sold me it in a kind of buy 3 or get none of them kind of a deal. So I ended up with this one, the one outside with the white top and the green bottom, and an old Wagoneer. Now, my intention was only ever to keep one of these, but ever since I got this, it's been a little bit of a dilemma over which one I keep. Now, I had a bit of a problem. My trailer only takes one vehicle, and I had to bring all 3 of them back, and it was a 6-hour round trip. Now, obviously, I've got to work as well, so we were going over some evenings, some weekends, picking these up, dragging them back. We'd also done a few deals on other things that also had to be moved. Now, this was all going pretty well, and we became really good friends with the guy, until I get a text from his wife early one morning saying that he passed away in the night. And this was crushing, because he really was becoming a good friend. But there was also practical issues. I had no paperwork for any of these vehicles. As far as I knew, The only guy that knew where the paperwork was and the titles was now dead. I didn't know if I was going to be able to even put any of these on the road. And that delayed things a little. So once they were back here, we unloaded them, we got all the rubbish out of the back, we cleaned them up a little bit to make sure there was no mice, and here they sat. And it took a little while to get everything sorted. By the time it was, I'd moved on to other projects. There were other things going on that got my attention, and this had not moved. I still hadn't worked out which truck I wanted to keep. The white one, it's the better truck. It's a manual, it's got the long bed, it's got the topper, it runs, it drives, it stops. I could take it to town right now, no problems. This one, I have no idea how good or bad the engine is. I don't know if the transmission works properly. It's an automatic, which is not my favorite thing. It's got a shorter bed on it. But for some reason, I'm drawn to this truck more than I am the other one. And some of it, as crazy as it sounds, is the colour. I know a lot of people hate green vehicles. I love the colour of this thing. I love this colour scheme. And I prefer the look of this truck. The other thing is, I will never use that topper. I'm not a topper guy. They just don't work with my lifestyle. And if I take that off that truck, it'll never go back on. And it's too good a topper just to get scrapped in 10 years when I forget all about it. That truck and that topper need to go together to someone that will enjoy it. So that kind of cements the feeling that I should be keeping this truck, which is all very well and good, assuming it runs and drives and isn't a total money pit. And that's where I need to find out. So the first thing has to be engine condition. That's going to play a huge role in whether I keep this truck or I keep the other one. And to find that out, I'm going to have to take the filter off, cut it open, see if there's any sparkles. I want to drop the oil, which looks awful. I mean, it really does not look good, and it stinks of gasoline. That's going to give us an indication of what condition this might or might not be in. Not super worried about the transmission because it's a common trans and I have a crate out there with 16 of them in it, and I can just throw another transmission in it. But that engine I would like to be pretty good if I'm going to sell the other truck. I know lots of guys use two-post lifts and they never put any stands under them. Yeah, I'm not a fan. This is a really good lift, but I still like to have that extra safety. I've not actually seen under here before. Some slightly special wiring. Actually looks really good. Ooh, spare tyre. Twin exhaust. Why are these covers always missing? Alright, let's get the filter off, drain the oil. Alright, let's see how bad this oil is. I like to use a paint strainer to catch the oil through. Sometimes it gets overwhelmed, but it can be a good way of getting any sparkles if there is any. Another thing I like to do is I take my ratchet off because I don't want it covered in old nasty oil, and I push up hard on the drain plug. And that will stop most of the oil coming out. Not all of it, not by a long way. But you'll get to a point where it turns and you'll feel a little click when you're on the same thread. So you can safely remove it now under control and not cover all your tools in nasty oil. Oh wow, this stinks of gas. Oh. Yeah, it reeks of old gas. Now, I haven't mentioned, but you probably saw when we walked underneath it, this has got a plastic tank on it. And the previous owner, that was one of the things that they'd done. They'd installed a plastic tank, but I've no idea how long ago or how old the fuel is that's in it, or if it even has fuel. I can tell you the engine oil has fuel. Oh yeah. Looking at how thin this is coming out, I'm really concerned that this mechanical fuel pump has failed. And a lot of these modern copies and reproductions and cheap mechanical fuel pumps don't have a weep hole in them. It's one of the things that they skimp out on. So there is nowhere for the fuel to go if the diaphragm fails, which it often does because it's not ethanol rated. So it just fills your crankcase. And we see, as an engine shop, a lot of engines that are just destroyed through mechanical fuel pumps pushing fuel into the crankcase. And as much as I hate the sound of an electric pump and all the problems that you get with them and the vapor lock and all the rest of it, I find it better than just having to rebuild the engine. So not only can I smell petrol, gasoline, whatever you want to call it, I can taste it. It's bitter, it's horrible. Okay, let's have a look inside this filter. That's really good news. There's no glitter in there, nothing shiny. That's fantastic. That's a really good sign that the bearings are probably still intact and the engine could be in good condition. Time to fill it back up with oil. 1030 is the best grade for this, and I'm going to go with the Z-Rod because it's got a flat tappet cam in there and I need something to protect that. These are meant to take 5 quarts, so that's kind of what I'm going with. I've got nothing against the brand of air filter here. I just don't like these reusable, washable filters. Nobody ever washes them properly. They don't use the right chemicals. Most people forget to oil them. And I don't even know if they breathe as well as a paper filter once they've been used and washed once or twice. What I do know is paper filters are cheap, they breathe well, and you don't have to spend 30 minutes cleaning them. I don't buy that there's a performance increase from these at all, other than the first 10 minutes when you first put them on. Okay, so this is an Edelbrock 4-barrel. It is a 1405, which is essentially a very similar, if not same, carb to the 1406 that has the electric choke. You can buy a conversion for these so they can go to electric choke. I think there's a slightly different jetting between the 1405 and 1406. I jet all my carbs to the right altitude anyway, so that's irrelevant. But I would like the convenience of the electric choke, so I think I'm going to buy that kit and put it on. One of the fun things about these Buick 350s is if they lose oil prime through the pump for whatever reason, it's almost impossible for you to get it back without taking off the oil pump and filling it full of petroleum jelly, putting it back on and repriming it. So when you first start these and you look at your oil gauge and it doesn't move, don't be tempted to think, oh, my oil gauge doesn't work. What's way more likely is that the pump has lost prime and it's not pumping any oil through your engine. So the first thing I'm going to do with this now is turn this over without the coil attached to see if I can get some oil pressure. I've just taken this fuel filter out. I don't know if there's fuel in the tank or not. It doesn't sound like there is, but I don't want any of this old fuel getting into this system, and certainly not going through and ended up in my oil somehow if this carb floods. So this fuel filter's coming out. It doesn't seem to be blocked. It did have fuel in it. It didn't smell great, but I would rather not have anything go into this new oil that shouldn't be there. For right now, coil lead's coming off. Not that I think there's any danger of it starting, but you never know. If this doesn't build oil pressure relatively quickly, I will pull the plugs out and see if that works. But first, just to save me that horrible job, I'm going to see if it turns over and builds a little bit of oil pressure. I'm going to go with probably positive. I'm going to push my luck and see if the key will even turn this thing over. Right, that's my oil pressure gauge. Let's see if anything happens. Not a flicker. That's worrying. That's not a super good sign. This is definitely not the right way to do this. Here is my issue though. Taking off that oil pump is a pain of a job. I would prefer not to do it. So I'm going to put a little bit of two-stroke fuel directly into the carb. Just enough for it to fire up for a few seconds and maybe get us some oil pressure. Which will work a lot better if I attach the coil again. Not even firing. That surprises me. I did think it would have just at least barked a little bit. Let's give it some choke. Whoa! Okay, which sounds nice. But that oil gauge is not moving. Well, all that fuel spitting out over the distributor was not a good thing. I checked the pipe before the fuel pump and I checked the tank and they were both bone dry. I didn't think anything was going to come out of there other than dust. I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to make sure that I bag or block those off in future. Because that could have been a fireball. I mean, it was super close to the distributor. But it's now Sunday morning and a little thing happened overnight, which is snow in springtime in Montana. You saw from the establishing shots on Friday, it's been sunny and warm here. This is a bit later than we would normally get snow and it's not a big deal, we're set up for snow. The issue that I have is the only parts store that has the fuel pump and regulator that I want to put on that, because that fuel pump might be pumping, but it is certainly not good. It's also pumping fuel into the crankcase. So I am going to put an electric pump on there and a regulator. Well, there's a 6,300 foot mountain pass behind me which closed last night because of the snow. And we may not have a lot of snow here, but 2,000 feet further up, there's a lot. So they normally get that stuff cleared pretty easily, and I think I should be able to make my way over the pass later on today. So in the meantime, I'm going to crack on, prepare for that electric fuel pump. I can run the wire, I can make sure that we've got hoses going to the right place, and I still need to get the oil primed and going through the engine. I've been looking and I don't have a gasket for the oil pump, and that makes me really reluctant to take it off. If I had a spare gasket, it would be no problem at all, we'd pull it off, but I don't really want to take that risk unless I have to, and they don't have any in stock locally. So I think the easiest thing for me to do now is remove this distributor, and then I can put a rod down there to connect up to the oil pump and turn it. I'll show you in a minute, but it's just, we make them out of old distributors. Right, move that out of the way for the moment, but before I get it completely out of the way, I'm going to mark where number one is. So I've got a mark in here that shows me my number one plug lead and then we're just going to put that there. So I've got something to line up with, because I want to be on top dead center, because if I can, I have a HEI distributor for this that I would like to put on. Sometimes you have to clearance a few things to get them to go in, but it would be great to get that on and do away with this point setup and the coil. It just makes things a little bit simpler and a little bit easier. I'm not against points, it's just in this particular vehicle I think an HEI would be a good idea. Okay, so there is my rotor arm, and I have my switch here connected to the starter motor. So I'm just going to spin that round. I'll probably take my arm off the power steering pump belt though, because otherwise that might scare me. Right. I went too far. So I'm going to go again. Oh, spot on. Now I can mark the base of the distributor, just in case this is the one that goes back in. All right, I can't mark the base because I can't get in at it. So I am going to put a random mark just on the side of it here. This is a distributor wrench. It's a funny shape so you can get in there and turn the distributor without having to mess about. You can get in there with standard wrenches. These are just a little bit easier if you have them. Victory is mine. That's out. And you see that just clamps around the bottom of the distributor there. Putting that to one side. Whenever I get a dead distributor, I pull the shaft out of it. And you can see you've got the different ends until I've got one set of each. That's the Ford end, this one's the Chevy end, and this, with any luck, is the Buick end. I have a GoPro on the oil pressure gauge. So you guys will see when this starts to prime, if it starts to prime, before I will, because I can't see in there. This distributor turns clockwise. You want to make sure that your drill is in whatever direction that your distributor moves in. And I'm going to pump this over now and see if we can get this through. You get a bit more load on the drill when it finally starts pumping oil, and I'm not feeling anything at all. I'm going to go up in speed, which is way quicker than this thing would be running when you think about it. All right, you hear that change in tone. That's because we've suddenly got oil through to it. So we're going to go back down to the slower speed. And we're priming. I bet that pressure gauge has got pressure coming up through it now. If I'm super fast, I might be able to go through and see the gauge myself. Yep, and it's dropping. Perfect. Yes, we've got oil primed. I've just got to keep doing this for 30-40 seconds. Make sure that I've got oil all the way around the engine. Okay, perfect. Our little homemade tool worked exactly how we wanted it to. This is my HEI distributor. Downside to these is they're huge. The upside is they have the coil built into them, they're really reliable, and you only need one wire to make them run. If this fits and it ends up going in, I am probably going to change this gear on the bottom, and I'll put the old one off the old distributor on because you get sympathetic wear between the camshaft and this gear. And when you're fitting aftermarket camshafts, you have to make sure that they're both using the same material, or you can get really rapidly accelerated wear and wipe your cam. But just to make things simple, I will end up swapping this over if I can, and if it fits. So right now, the only thing it is sticking on is this hard line for the fuel. And I think I can move that over a little bit. There we go. The reason that that had to be rotated to drop down is you see the line in the bottom of there, that fits in obviously to a slot in the shaft. And the two things have to line up. You've not only got to mesh with the gear, that has to line up as well. So sometimes when it's not in the right place and you're trying to line up your timing perfectly, you have to put this down and move it a couple of times to get it right. I just need to decide how I'm going to clock this. I want it so I can bring this vacuum lead off, but I still have plenty of room to adjust in both directions for timing. And I'm thinking probably about there is going to suit me. I'm a distance away, that'll come round. My wires aren't too terrible. Now, which one you pick as number one for this on an HEI distributor doesn't matter. It's not even a little bit important. Just pick one, mark it, go with it. If this was like a Chevy 350 or something, you would normally point the rotor arm at the number one cylinder, and then that gives the next guy a fighting chance. This is a little bit different, but it doesn't matter. The point of it is find something that you're calling number one, line up with it, and you should be golden. I normally do this in the vise, so I don't know how well this is going to work doing it on the table for you, but I'm hoping you can see it better this way. Okay, this stopped me because you can almost put this pin through here. Now, if I put this gear, the match gear, onto this shaft, this has, logically, to have a larger hole through that shaft than this pin size, which means this will rock back and forth, which will cause timing problems. It'll also chatter and do weird stuff. So, as much as I don't want to, I'm going to use the new gear that came with this and put that straight in. So this distributor is ready to go in. I've made myself a little pigtail up so that I can put that wire onto the back connector, which will go to the old wire that the coil was connected to, and then we're going to bypass the ballast resistor, and then that's all we're going to have to do wiring wise. But the weather is clear at the moment. I've had a look at the pass camera and it looks fine, so I'm going to head over the pass and get the parts that we need. I will shoot a little video going over the pass so that you can see what the weather's like. I'm hoping it's going to be really clear, but I'll see you in a little while. I timed this pretty well. The pass was great to go over. I got the parts with no problems. My neighbour came over here the following night and discovered a huge boulder had fallen, and he got through it around 10 o'clock at night, and everyone after him was stranded. It is the highest pass on the I-90 and gets 15 serious accidents a year, so it is not to be taken lightly. I am back and I have shiny things. I've got the electric fuel pump. Now this fuel pump goes between 4 and 7 psi. That will be too much for this carburetor. The 1405s need 5.5 psi. So I also picked up a regulator so I can adjust the fuel pressure and get that right. I also got a set of HT leads, as we call them in the UK, and spark plug wires, as they are called in America. These are a universal set. The reason I got these, I actually have the correct set for this vehicle with the old distributor, brand new in a box over there, but it's no use to me because they have different shaped boots for the HEI distributor. So hopefully this will fit. Well, I've put that HEI distributor back in where we had it, and the rotor arm is pointing towards the number one post. It only has 2 wire terminals on it. One of them says TAC and one of them says BAT. The one that says battery is your battery positive feed, and I've connected that to the old positive wire that used to go to the coil. Now that would only have about 9 volts on it, so it would be no good for this application. So what you have to do is remove the ballast resistor. And as you can see, I've disconnected it from the ballast resistor. I'm leaving it there in case anyone in the future or me wants to put it back. And then I've run a jumper wire between the 2 wires there, and I'm going to put some heat shrink over that. And I haven't cut any wires. The reason I put little bolts in there with nylocks and a spike washer is so that it can all be undone in the future for any reason if I want to. And once the heat shrinks on, it'll be perfectly safe. We're just swapping the tyres over to the newer ones because I want to keep those new ones that are on the white and green one and put them on this. And then put the slightly older ones that are on my 55 onto the white and green one. Oh, that definitely looks better. The previous owner had put a rubber hose the full length of the vehicle going back to the new plastic tank they put in. I mean, new is relative, of course. But I'm not a huge fan of having rubber lines running that long. I prefer the hard lines, and the hard lines are still here, but clearly clogged. So I'm attempting to clean them out and unclog them. Now I've got a compressed air line on there, and I've blown out all the crud. I used a metal pick to pull it out of the other end. And now I've got a bag where it's open on the bottom. It's not going to build pressure. And you have to be super careful if you're compressing stuff and using a flammable liquid, which I'm about to. I'm going to put brake clean in there, and I can't remember whether my brake clean is the flammable kind or not, but I'm not going to take the risk by building up any kind of pressure and compressing it. So I'm going to gently push through that liquid just to clean it out, and all the debris should go into the bag without spraying all over my shop. Okay, that doesn't look too awful. The stuff coming out of it, I think would clean up with a couple of fuel filters. So I'm good to use this line, and now I'm going to move on to the second hard line. This second one is free and clear now as well. A little bit more dirt came out of this, but it wasn't horrible. I'm now going to have to drop this tank. I don't know how they installed it. I don't know if the fuel sender even works. I don't know if everything's connected. So the only way to really find out is drop it and check. My hope is I can just undo one side and then not. That one's real hard to fight at, and this is kind of bendy, so I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to gently try and bring this down. Gently is one of the many words this stand doesn't understand, so we'll see how we go. Yeah, that was a complete failure. I didn't undo this stand from where I wanted to because the Jubilee clip or hose clamp had its undoey part, should we go with, pointing in a place you couldn't get to. Clearly it had been put on before the tank had gone up, so I'm going to redo that before I put it back. This isn't heavy, by the way, it's completely empty. The only reason this stand is here is to help me put it back afterwards and just make this a little bit less stressful. It is so easy to get to these. There's so much space. I have no idea why they did it before taking it up there. There it is. Whoa. This stand does that a lot. Just drops like a stone. It's really handy when you've got a heavy transmission on it. I'm seeing things I am happy about. Let's see if I can get it so you can see them. So you can see amongst all the mouse poop and weird detritus that they have got a sending unit and what looks suspiciously like the new sender units from BJ's Off-Road. So I'm going to measure the resistance of this and see if it's in within range. In within? See if it's within range. And if it is, then other than doing the plumbing, I'll be pretty happy about this. I'm going to vacuum all that off though, because that's nasty. So things that aren't instilling confidence. This hasn't been tightened down. Guessing because they thought that was in the way. I'm sure it was, but you know, wrenches exist. And has a big hole in the side of it. The return line wasn't connected anyway, so these are just an opportunity for dust to get in there. No good at all, so we'll fix that up before it goes back up. and throw that away. Right, we're putting that in ohms mode, which is the one that looks a bit like a horseshoe. And we're going to test resistance first of all with it closed. And that's showing me 0.3 ohms. Now I'm going to go between the body of the sender So this is going to need a ground to work. But it should be working between the body and that center post. So that's giving me, near as damn infinity. Right, 100 and... It's moving around a lot, but 200 ohmish. The reason I'm changing it over is to make that level move. And now we are legit at infinity. Something's not right with that. So that'll have to come out and I'll have to work out what's going on with the fuel sender, because I can't remember what the actual range is for these senders, but it isn't infinity and 200 ohms. So that's got to be dealt with. And there has to be some way with a plastic tank that you have a ground to it. So you would have to run a ground to somewhere on this for it to get a signal back to the gauge. And this is filthy, and I am a little bit worried how much dust has got in through these open holes. So the extra time to open it up and clean it out and find out what's going on with this sender unit is probably worth it at this stage, because then we don't ever have to take this tank down again, which would be a massive win. This doesn't look too bad in here. I was right about it not having much fuel in it though. But I'll give this a bit of a blowout with the airline and vacuum it. I think this is going to be all right. The fuel sender unit is a new one as well, relatively. So I'm hoping I can get this working. So you see how the reading is all over the place. We're in, really, really high resistance. And when I move the float, as the fuel would do, it just goes completely out. And that's just because the contacts are dirty. Dirty. So, if I'm just going to try a little bit of, this is WD-40, nothing exciting. And then move it backwards and forwards a few times. We're getting 85 ohms. Still a little bit out on the top end. Yeah, it's a little bit out. So it just needs cleaning up. I am sorely tempted to dump this in the ultrasonic bath and let it clean all that oxidization off. There's a contact cleaner called Detoxic, which I really like, but I've run out of it. We used to use it in the recording studio all the time for like dodgy faders. And this would have worked fantastic on this, but I used it. Oh, there we go. I mean, the fact it's moving is not good, but 16, 15 ohms and then going to 80, that's kind of sensible readings. So you can see I'm just going to keep going at this and this will come up and be working fine. So I've been moving this back and forth no longer than a minute. But you can see it's giving me a smooth reading. Full. Empty. And once this is wired incorrectly, I should be able to see how much fuel I've got. Assuming the gauge in the dash works, of course, but I'm really happy with that. I've just tapped this plastic out with this tapered tap to quarter national pipe thread and then put a blank in it, and then that's just got PTFE paste around it to seal it in. I'm not worried about it being airtight so much, it's just keeping the dust out and it not vibrating back out. I've put the sender back in And I've cleaned up this tab and that screw, and I've added a wire, so we'll now have a ground for our fuel level sender, so it might even work. I've got new fuel hose on the send and the return. The return is going to be used as a vent. I'll show you how I'll do that in a little while. And I'm putting new on here because it's hard to get to, and I'll be reusing the old but good condition hose on the rest of the car where it's easy to access. I also really didn't like this rusty nut that was on the actual sender wire, so I've replaced it with a brass one which won't rust. The main feed for the tank is now connected to this filter, which goes to the pump, which is going in the right flow direction. And then that goes, I did relent and put a new piece of hose there, which then now goes to the hard line. I found an old random red wire which wasn't connected to anything, so I'm gonna use that to run my live feed to the fuel pump, as it is the same gauge. The negative for the sender and the negative for the fuel pump around here. And it'll be a little dark, but I've cleaned this up to bare metal. I put a little bit of contact grease on there so it stays good. And we've got them both connecting to the frame there so they get a good ground. This hose here is connected to what would have been the return on this tank. Now I'm going to use this as a vent. So what I'm going to do is just get a fuel filter, stick it in the end, one of those plastic ones, and I'm going to tuck this up in the frame so it's above the tank and away from the exhaust. That way it isn't going to siphon, but it'll still act as a vent. And because it's just got a fuel filter shoved in the end of it, it's not going to let any dust into my tank. I have that filter up on the vent now. You can see it's open on one end. Dust can't get in there, but the fumes can get out. I have a cable tie on there, but it's metal because I don't want a plastic one to fail. And if it was very full, drop down and siphon my tank. I will put a little bit of rubber around that though, so it doesn't eat through my hose. And that should be that done. I need to set static timing, so I have the vacuum disconnected from the HEI distributor. I've got it, instead of blanked off, I've actually got it going to a vacuum gauge so I can measure what's going on. I have my timing light set up, and I have a fuel pressure gauge. That will allow me to set the pressure regulator and make sure I've not got too much or too little fuel pressure going to the carburetor. I currently have this set at 14 for top dead center at idle, and it's at about 34 wide open throttle. I've got reasonable amount of vacuum. My fuel pressure is sitting nice. I think this is quite a good setup for this at the moment. Time to connect up the vacuum advance and see how it drives. I'm pretty sure this will start because it's just been starting. We've set the timing, I've got no problem with that. I don't know if this transmission will work at all. I don't know if we'll even move at this point, but I want to test it. A little nervous. It hasn't really moved under its own power in 20 years as far as I'm aware, so yeah, I think we're about to find out what else is wrong with it. Oh, and I haven't in any way whatsoever looked at the brake system. Pedal feels firm. That's it. I haven't even checked to see how much fluid's in it. So this could be eventful. Let's see if it starts. How do you drive an automatic again? There we go. Brakes did something. Brakes work. Good to drive. Tell you what, I am not in love with this little steering wheel, but I'm willing to bet, looking at that camera out there, that's quite shaky. And this is the one I was worried about, because that one is stuck to nothing. speedo is erratic would be an improvement. It's going anywhere between 110, which this absolutely is not capable of doing, and 0. I'm going to hold this because I don't think it's going to stay on there. But it is an automatic, so I want to try and show you the amazingness that is the speedo. And if that front view is kind of shaky, I apologise, but you can see why it's kind of shaky. If it looks bumpy on the camera, it's bumpy. Not so much to follow the truck, really. I mean, this is just a pretty bumpy bit of track. Alright. Wheel spun in the dirt. Is that good? Probably not. Okay. Tight corner coming up. Well, right angle of a corner coming up through the top. Got a little bit of a dip going in. So a fun thing about this is I don't think the locking hubs unseized yet. I haven't tried them, but when I tried them with my fingers, they won't come undone, and I want to try them with a set of pliers or something. And I didn't get around to that, so hopefully it goes through this 2-wheel drive, because it's a bit long. Watch the paintwork. Oh, yeah. What a machine. At the moment, the floor stick, you know, the one that goes between 2 and 4-wheel drive, and I presume high and low range, but it does in some of my others, is all the way forwards. And forgive me, I can't remember what that means. It's a Dana 20 transfer case. So if any of you folks can remember if we're in 4 high or low or 2 or whatever it is, if you could let me know in the comments, I would appreciate it. So it just seems to be coming back. It's smoothing out a little. I don't want to give it too much because I want time for it to come back alive. But it's definitely got power. I have AMC's 360s and obviously the Dauntless. And I don't know which one I really prefer, but I do like the low end grunt from this that you don't really feel so much with the 360. You'll take it on its first road, dirt track admittedly. So you will notice if I show the camera this bit that there is a new oil pressure gauge. I'm getting 40 psi of oil pressure, temps are pretty good. There's a story behind that, and I'll tell you as we go out for it. Right. Reverse neutral drive. There we are. Okay. So after I fitted the HEI distributor, I wanted to bump it over and just check that I had power through and everything. So I did that, and about 3 minutes after that, a huge huge puddle of oil appeared under the car. And you know those cheap, nasty plastic lines that go between the oil pressure sender and the gauge? pretty grumpy about it, I won't mind telling you. So I ended up replacing that then and there with this rather nifty looking Bosch gauge that a buddy of mine gave me. He just had it spare, so that works out pretty nicely. The steering is actually nice, and I'm not hating this steering wheel as much as I thought I would. I probably shouldn't have come out here without checking under the hood to see that there isn't anything that's going to cause a fire, because I forgot to bring a fire extinguisher with me, so that's awesome. I'm going to go over this hill in a minute and then back up it because I want to just test it with a little bit of power. The brake pedal is like 3 foot further to the left of where I think it is. I keep going for the brakes and hitting the throttle. Not sure why that would be, as I drive my Wagoneer a lot. Maybe that was one of the things they changed when they went over to AMC. Or maybe somebody's messed with this. I don't know. Okay, we're coming over the crest of the hill. Turning this round just in case that camera isn't picking anything up. I think this will be an excellent test of the GoPro stabilization. And I do need to clean it here. I mean, it's pretty bad. Now, I'm just wondering where I'm going to turn around. The brakes are less confidence-inspiring when you're going down this hill. The engine wants to go, and it's kind of taking pick up with it no matter what. Yeah, I probably should do some brake things. Back park, reverse, neutral, drive. Okay, let's see how we're going up this hill. Well, it lets the tyres go, but it's not very impressive on gravel. I don't want to hit it too hard up here because there's a couple with a young child at the top of the hill and they sometimes go out walking. But I can feel that I've got plenty of power coming up the hill, which is what I'm interested in. But I'm going to slide right down at this crest because I don't want to be responsible for running over somebody's baby, you know. I feel shock absorbers could be in the future. Still can't quite decide if the brakes are getting worse or better. I think marginally worse. With them not being run for so long, they're bound to have rusted up on the path. Drives pretty well and it's got bags of power, tons and tons of power. I think it'll be a living nightmare in the snow. Just wheel spin everywhere. Starting to relax a little bit, mainly because it's downhill all the way now to my house, and if it breaks down here, it's not a particularly long walk to go and drag it back, but it feels really comfortable. I can't believe how little play there is in the steering. This is feeling like a going to town kind of a rig. I like this a lot. I see myself doing more of this. Coming over here because I want to check the transmission fluid. about a quart low before we set off, and I put a bottle of that transmission magic fix in a bottle thing in it because I had some and it was in an old car. Well, that's sounding a lot better. Let's go to idle. So it's kind of, as you can see from the front camera, yeah, it's a little bit vibraty in idle still, but under load it sounds pretty good. That's sounding good. I think it just has a weird balance issue. I think it's entirely possible that somebody's put the torque converter on, clocked it wrong. It could just be that. But so far, very impressed. I do love the sound of this truck, and the test drive and working on it has really cemented my decision. I'm more sure than ever now that this is the one I'm going to keep. And I want to know what you guys think. Would you have kept the white and green one, or would you have kept this one? I've had a lot of fun putting this truck back on the road with you guys, and can't wait to get out there and drive it and just use it. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.